Good morning, gardeners, and welcome to Friday, June 23rd. My name is Catherine, and I created a show called Good Morning Gardeners, even though I can't grow green things because I'm referring to gardening metaphorically. We're planting the seeds for a better day. We're starting our morning by getting in the right mindset to cultivate a better life for ourselves, better communities, and a better world. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to add Good Morning Gardeners to your morning routine. I do my best to wake you up with positive and mentally stimulating ideas, but sometimes I do miss things. If you have something to add to the ideas I discussed today, please chime in the comments section below. Today is International Widows' Day. For many women around the world, the devastating loss of a partner is magnified by a long-term fight for their basic rights and dignity. Despite the fact that there are more than 258 million widows around the world, widows have historically been left unseen, unsupported, and unmeasured in our societies. Today, as armed conflicts, displacement, and migration, and the COVID-19 pandemic leave tens of thousands of women newly widowed and many others whose partners are missing or disappeared, the unique experiences and the needs of widows must be brought to the forefront, with their voices leading the way. The United Nations has observed June 23rd as International Widows' Day since 2011 to draw attention to the voices and experiences of widows and to galvanize the unique support that they need. Now more than ever, this day is an opportunity for action towards achieving full rights and recognition for widows. This day includes providing them with information on access to fair share of their inheritance, land, and productive resources, pensions and social protections that are not based on marital status alone, decent work and equal pay, and education and training opportunities. To learn more and contribute to the Global Fund for Widows, visit globalfundforwidows.org, which I have linked in the description of this video. So yesterday evening, I actually had a completely different idea for what to discuss with you this morning, but I was reading this book yesterday evening, and I love this book. I am like maybe 10% of the way through, and I fully recommend it. I mean, I think it's great. Actually, because what I have been reading in this book blew my mind so much that I completely forgot what else I was going to talk to you about. It doesn't matter. The other thing I was going to talk about was probably dumb. But yeah, I generally prefer to share passages from books that I have already finished so that I have the full context for the ideas that I share, but with this book, I just can't help myself. Everything that I have read in Team Human by Douglas Rushkoff so far has resonated with me on a very deep level. These are thoughts that I think I have stored as feelings rather than words. So it's just so incredibly validating to see it laid out, in words, and in a very logical, methodical way. So I'm probably going to finish this book really soon really quickly because I'm obsessed with it. And I also, when I was checking to see whether this was a New York Times bestseller, and apparently it's not because I don't see it on the cover. I can't imagine why, because it's great. I noticed that Douglas Rushkoff, the author, has a podcast. And so, yeah, I'm definitely going to check out the podcast as well, and I will let you guys know if I recommend that too. And actually, this kind of gave me the idea to begin cultivating a list of potential stand-ins for this show for people who want to go on, for people who want to extend, their morning routines to the weekends when I don't air Good Morning Gardeners, or, for example, when I go on vacation and there might be some period of days in the week, during the week, that there are no new Good Morning Gardeners episodes. Maybe I could just put in the About section or something like that, some links to some recommended podcasts or other channels which you guys could use instead, or if you just need a break from me. But yeah, let me know what you think about that idea, and if you have any suggestions for morning routine listening alternatives, please leave those in the comment section. So for our learning moment today, I am going to share with you the backdrop for one of the ideas presented in Team Human that has just captivated me. The concept is the figure-ground phenomenon of perception, and I'm going to be reading to you a portion from the Figure-Ground Wikipedia page. If you would like to keep an eye on the screen today, I will also be putting up some visual aids for this segment. Figure-ground organization is a type of perceptual grouping that is a vital necessity for recognizing objects through vision. In Gestalt psychology, it is known as identifying a figure from the background. For example, black words on a printed paper are seen as the figure and the white sheet as the background. The Gestalt theory was founded in the 20th century. The word Gestalt is a German word when translated to English that means pattern or configuration. Gestalt psychology establishes that the whole of anything is greater than its parts. You might have encountered this way of thinking under the label of holism. The Gestalt concept is that not only movement or process as such, but also the direction and distribution of process is determined dynamically by interaction. Sensory organization is not dependent upon isolated stimuli and local stimulation, but upon the relative properties of stimulation and the dynamical context. The most famous example of the figure-ground perception phenomenon is the Rubin vase drawing. According to the Rubin vase Wikipedia page, Rubin's vase is a famous set of ambiguous or bistable two-dimensional forms developed around 1915 by the Danish psychologist Edgar Rubin. One element of Rubin's research may be summarized in the fundamental principle: when two fields have a common border and one is seen as figure and the other as ground, the immediate perceptual experience is characterized by a shaping effect which emerges from the common border of the fields and which operates only on one field or operates more strongly on one than the other. The visual effect generally presents the viewer with two shape interpretations, each of which is consistent with the retinal image, but only one of which can be maintained at any given moment. Back to the Figure-Ground Wikipedia page, the human visual system will settle on either of the interpretations of the Rubin vase and alternate between them, a phenomenon known as multi-stable perception. Functional brain imaging shows that when people see the Rubin image as a face, there is activity in the temporal lobe, specifically in the face selective region. So, in case you didn't have an opportunity to look at the screen today, we're talking about that old famous image that you probably have seen and maybe even heard it categorized as an optical illusion, where you have a vase in the center of the image and then two faces on either side of the vase. And depending on whether you focus on the middle, you will see a vase, or if you look at the edges, which are two silhouetted faces, you will see the faces. So the figure-ground perception theory states that you can only see one of these elements at a time, and which you see is heavily influenced by the color or the shape of the border that is surrounding them. So figure-ground perception precedes all other visual perceptive skills and is one of the first to develop in a young baby. 3 to 4 month olds respond to differences in lightness rather than differences in form similarity. It is suggested that scaffolding, the development of new skills over time based on the building of other skills, is responsible for the development of perceptual organization. Environment plays a major role in the development of figure-ground perception as well. The development of figure-ground perception begins the day the baby can focus on an object. The faces of caregivers, parents, and familiar objects are the first to be focused on and understood. As babies develop, they learn to distinguish the objects they desire from their surroundings. Sitting up, crawling, and walking present ample opportunity to develop this skill further. The perceptual decision in which the brain decides which item is the figure and which are part of the ground on a visual scene can be based on many cues, all of which are of a probabilistic nature. For instance, Size assists in distinguishing between the figure and the ground, as smaller regions are often, but not always, figures. Object shape can assist in distinguishing figure from ground because figures tend to be convex. Movement also helps. The figure may be moving against a static environment. Color is also a cue because the background tends to continue as one color behind potentially multiple foreground figures. Color is also a cue because the background tends to continue as one color behind potentially multiple foreground figures whose colors may vary. Evidently, the process of distinguishing figure from ground, sometimes called figure-ground segmentation, is inherently probabilistic, and that means that the best the brain can do is to take all relevant cues into account to generate what is the highest probability, or the brain is only giving you its best guess of which is the figure and which is the ground. Subjective factors can also influence figure-ground perception. For instance, if a viewer has the intention to perceive one of the two regions as the figure, it will likely alter their ability to analyze the two regions objectively. In addition, if a viewer's gaze is fixated on a particular region, the viewer is more likely to view the fixated region as the figure. So, now that we've all learned something, I am going to read to you the section from Team Human that started me down this rabbit hole. And it is actually in a section titled Figure and Ground. So Douglas writes, Douglas writes, human inventions often end up at cross purposes with their original intentions, or even at cross purposes with humans ourselves. Once an idea or an institution gains enough influence, it changes the basic landscape. Instead of the invention serving people in some way, people spend their time and resources serving it. The original subject becomes the new object. Or, as we may effectively put it, the figure becomes the ground. What fascinates people to this day is the way the perception of figure and ground can change in different circumstances and cultures. When shown a picture of a cow in a pasture, most Westerners will see a picture of a cow. Most Easterners, on the other hand, will see a picture of a pasture. Their perceptions are so determined, in fact, that people who see the figure may be oblivious to major changes in the background, and people who see the ground may not even remember what kind of animal was grazing there. Neither perception is better or worse so much as incomplete. If the athlete sees herself as the only one that matters, she misses the value of her team, the ground in which she functions. If a company's human resources officer sees the individual employee as nothing more than a gear in the firm, he misses the value and autonomy of the particular person, the figure. When we lose track of figure and ground, we forget who is doing what for whom and why. We risk treating other people as objects. Worse, we embed these values in our organizations or encode them into our technologies. By learning to recognize reversals of figure and ground, we can liberate ourselves from the systems to which we have become enslaved. Figure-ground reversals are easy to spot once you know where to look and maybe how to look. Take money. It was originally invented to store value and enable transactions. Money was the medium for the marketplace's primary function of value exchange. Money was the ground, and the marketplace was the figure. Today, the dynamic is reversed. The acquisition of money itself has become the central goal, and the marketplace just a means of realizing that goal. Money has become the figure, and the marketplace, full of people, has become the ground. Understanding this reversal makes it easier to perceive the absurdity of today's destructive form of corporate capitalism. Corporations destroy the markets on which they depend or sell off their most productive divisions in order to increase the bottom line on their quarterly reports. That's because the main product of a company is no longer whatever it provides to consumers, but the shares it sells to investors. The figure has become the ground. So, As I said before, just about everything I read in this book has hit home with me so far. And if you've been listening to Good Morning Gardeners for some time, you probably already know why I love this particular passage so much. My primary marketable skill is graphic design, but several years ago, I decided that I didn't want to design for just any old company. I wanted to shift my client base to ethical businesses, nonprofits, and charities that were actively working to make the world a better place. When I decided to make this market position shift, I didn't necessarily have a logical argument for doing so. I didn't even have a well-crafted definition of what an ethical business was, and if you watched the Good Morning Gardeners from a week ago, you can hear my latest thoughts on developing this definition. As of last night, when I read this passage, I had an incredible amount of validation for the biggest part of how I currently define an ethical business. And that part is value. If you watch my video from 1 week ago, you'll hear me say that an ethical business should prioritize delivering value above maximizing profits. And now I have a logical argument for why this is the case. The word ethical, in the way I choose to use it, is human-centric, saving, improving, or extending human lives. And this figure-ground argument demonstrates exactly how the overemphasis on money has undermined humans and stifled the potential value the marketplace could be offering them. In a world that places so much emphasis on financial wealth and career success, I also think it's really easy to slip into the trap of defining yourself based on this system. It's very common to believe that if you have a lot of money, you are successful, but if you aren't wealthy, you aren't successful. But I believe that perspective is inverted from how things should be. The market is a tool for exchanging value, and what is value? Anything that we call valuable is logically valuable to humans, meaning anything valuable to humans is helpful to humans. So value serves humanity. But we've got it flipped. The figure, which is the humans, has become the ground, and what was meant to be the ground, the value, has become the figure. Now, remember what we read from the Figure-Ground Wikipedia page about how it is possible to shift your perspective and see what you previously thought was the ground as the figure and vice versa. If a viewer's gaze is fixated on a particular region, the viewer is more likely to view the fixated region as the figure. So this morning, for our focus moment, I want you to try to shift your perspective. See if you can flip what you've been seeing as the figure and ground when it comes to success and value. This type of perspective shift is likely to be incredibly difficult because the framing or the border of the picture, the environment we all live in and have always lived in, supports seeing the ground as the figure. That is, we are all conditioned to believe that our value is defined by how much money we have, instead of seeing money as something that is meant to serve us. So I think if you can shift your perspective for even a millisecond this morning, it's a win. You are the figure because you are a human. Value serves humans. The marketplace exchanges value to help humans. Money facilitates that exchange and is therefore also meant to serve humans. So you are the point of all this. You are not defined by money, wealth, or anything else market related. You are inherently valuable. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will speak with you again on Monday.